Good morning. Happy to know you're with us on Plus TV Africa. It's that time again when we'll take a look at the headlines in our newspaper review segment. I'm not alone as always. I have for company this morning Olojede. Balaho Olojede.
Right.
Thank you very much for coming.
Nice to be here.
All right. We have the Punch and some other papers. We have the Guardian today, by the way. So, yeah. All right, we'll look at the Punch newspaper. Return to not now, not in elders, youths, order Fulani headsmen in South. Southern governors, leaders, utterances putting Fulani headers' lives at risk. That's NEF. That's the big one there. We also have the International Community of Women Living with HIV West Africa during the 2019 World Population Day in Abuja. Amazing. They're all there. You see it on the front page. We also have this one that says, IMF MD Lagarde resigns, gets successor September. Patient commits suicide at Uniben Teaching Hospital. Afghan, Nigeria, Tunisia battle for third place today. Sports lovers, that's your cue to go to page 43 of the paper for details. Still at the bottom, let's finish with that before we go to the very top. YYF warns Southwest governors, monarchs against selling Yoruba land. Septuagenarian laments 650,000 naira lost to fraudulent bank transactions. Ogun residents lament hardship, flooding caused by bad Egan Road. You find details of that story on page 4 and 5 of the paper. EFCC handsome qualified graduates undergoing NYSC scheme. You know, I remember when I hadn't served, I was just waiting. I was just 29, just 1 year before I got over it. I was like, God, I must do my national youth service. I can imagine sometimes the passion can get overboard and then they'll find a way to subvert the system. Well, let's hope they get them quickly.
I hope they do, because there's quite a number of them in the system.
We also have this one that says, banditry killings, you are politicizing isolated incidents, Buhari tells OPJ Jonathan Shoinka. That's still on the issue of the death of the Afenifere leader's daughter. A fraud, Nigerian firm barred from West Bank AFDB contracts. That's a bit of an issue there. Let's see what's on the back page. The Punch says, from West Africa with war. Part 2. All right, so over to you. Yeah, there must have been a part 1. I don't get where his lay consultant is speaking, so you might want to read that one. Which would you want to pick on first?
I think we can start from the top. You are politicizing isolated incidents. I don't think what we have are isolated incidences of insecurity. It has actually become very pervasive. So the president's comment in this instance, it's not correct. It's incorrect. And we have gotten to that stage where we must do something. So this time around, unlike his previous letters, for example, I love the tone of the recent OBJ's letter. It was no longer about some grand conspiracies about some West African Islamization that is coming to sweep us our feet and all the rest. He was saying, let's sit down as a nation and talk. That is a total departure from where we were coming from with him. You see the same trend yesterday at the National Assembly. The Senate President actually made the same recommendation that we need to sit down and talk about security.
Well, we've had conversations before. We have the 2014 confab, which some people say they don't want, while others are saying that would be a solution.
In
what more talk do we have?
We do not actually have the security, the pervasive security challenge that we had today.
Some would argue with you. Some would argue that it has always been there. The reason some of these issues are becoming so vocal is because of the personalities involved. If it was a normal person that had an accident, 2 days ago there was an accident on the way and nobody talked about it.
Incidentally, it goes slightly beyond. I travel. My mom lives in Osun State, and I go frequently. These days, when I'm going, I'm thinking twice before I get on that road. It wasn't like that in 2014, 2015, if not even in 2016. Okay. But over the last couple of years, when you're passing those places, you're thinking twice. There's a fear that comes upon you. It shows that it has whatever has changed. In 2014, we were not having somebody entering into casino and killing 17 people, or entering into Zamfara and killing 50 people in a day. There was nothing like that in 2014. So
you believe that a conversation will really help the situation?
It will help the situation. We're not talking. What has been happening in Nigeria is some intra-ethnic discussions and conspiracy theories flying all over the whole place. The people, the parties involved are not sitting to talk together.
Do you think maybe there is an agenda by politicians? Because it seems that sometimes they are at the epicenter of the conversation.
It's possible. For example, you might have observed, are you not getting bored with the fact that everything that happens now is done by a Fulani headsman? Is it not crazy? It cannot be. Fulani headsmen could not suddenly displace all criminal elements in Nigeria and become the sole the domineering criminals and bandits in the country. It's not possible. So we're not talking at all, and we must do so.
Okay, let's go to the Vanguard newspaper now. We spent quite a bit on one subject, so we'll just go to another and take a look at the state of the nation is on everybody's mind, obviously. Insecurity worsening under Buhari, Jonathan, Anyoku, those are the people speaking on the front page this morning. You see the writers there as well. Those criticizing me are unpatriotic. That's Buhari. That's actually highlighted. That's why I caught my eyes. And then we also have Save Nigeria from the Brink. Anyoku tells Buhari, National Assembly. Declare state of emergency and security now. PDP tells Buhari. Those are some of the writers to the story on your screen right now. Cooking gas petrol prices record marginal increase in June. Details is on page 19. I'm sure mothers and cooks will be worrying about that increase. Not an Elders Forum, CNG's older headsmen out of South. Presidential poll, Buhari's lawyer plays video clip of INEC chair in court. You find details on page 4 of the paper. Book presentation, that's what's on the front page. We also have 2 killed, 6 injured, 4 houses razed, 3 vehicles burnt in Ondo communal clash. Killings. Senate condemns Fashorati's daughter's murder. Plans security summit. Reps ask FG to install CCTV on streets. How really visible is that?
But they've started in some parts of the country.
But not on the highways. That might be tricky.
On the highways?
On the highways.
How are they going to power it?
That's another question.
It should be done because it's done in other parts of the world. So how do they do it in those parts of the world? Are we going to use solar to power it? Whatever means. But we need to consider, see, on a couple of occasions in the US, I got arrested as a driver for not putting on my light at night. I was driving. Why did you think that happened? The streets were so well lit that I drove into the night and didn't remember to put on my lights. So those kind of things, we need to think well, but I mean, we have more serious issues right now.
And that's why I was just giggling because this country that I love as much as you, we know that we have plenty of challenges, and it will take more than talk. It will take a lot more commitment
a lot more,
for us to get to that point, and sacrifices too. Yeah. All right, let's see other headlines that will unravel how Ndubisi Chukwu died. That's a South African envoy. Owner, 2 wives, 9 others die in just building collapse. That's another worrying development that we keep talking about. But when it happens, we talk about it, and then something else comes and overwhelms us, and then we move on to the next topic, and then it happens again, and then we'll go back to it again. It's just amazing. Naira Watch is also on the front page there. Naira depreciates to 161.25 to a dollar in I&E window. Okay, and the back page of the Vanguard is sports as usual, but we won't bother with that this morning. Let's hear
they cry the request by the northern group
elders
for headsmen to start coming to the north is not a good sign. It's also part of why I think we must sit down and talk. So if the people up there are saying, my people, start coming back home, don't you think people from the south who are up there will start getting worried as well.
Yeah, there's already calls. I think a couple of days ago there was a call from some southern leader that they should start coming home.
It's as if we're going back to 1966. You know, so it's a more reason. So rather than having all this intra-ethnic conspiracy, whatever, and talk, let the people come together as a whole and discuss what is going on in this country. Yeah.
Okay, I would like you to talk a bit about this, asking federal government, because we've talked about that, having, and then owner wife killed, building collapse.
That's in Just Plateau.
Yes.
Lagos had its own sessions. I pray that we have had the last of it.
Amen.
It shows that the problem is not just about Lagos, it's also all around the country. And we must have a way of reviewing these buildings, especially the old buildings. Some of them are old. I think one of the ones I was reading about recently had been around for about 100 years. And, you know, okay, that one was even outside of Nigeria. That was Mumbai. You know, so some of these old buildings, we need to revisit them and check that the structural integrity is still in place, so we can avoid this kind of death. This is an unnecessary death, if you ask me.
All right, let's go to the Guardian newspaper and see what's trending there. Buhari under fire over plan to register illegal migrants. It's backdoor to populate nation with alien Fulani headsmen. Again, the
conspiracies are there. Because you know, everything now is Fulani headsmen.
We seem to thrive on it these days. Presidency, immigration, unclear over schemes target. A Middle Belt Forum, Afenifere warned of conspiracy against citizens. That's another one. Don't receive bribes from foreigners. Agency cautions staff. I think that was in the news the other day. I didn't even give it much of a thought because I believe that the commission, the Refugee Commission, would have done due diligence to find out who these people are before giving them some documents to, you know, come stay in the country. But like you said, these conspiracy theories will always be there. Fashion artist on the front page with the former President Jonathan. There's a caption to that. Seek action on 2014 National Conference report. Lagarde resigns as IMF chief, eyes ECB post. We know that's a given already. 15 bodies evacuated from collapsed building in Jos. Ogoni cleanup project will serve as template for others, says Oshibanjo, that's our vice president. And behind the Guardian newspaper is Nigeria seeks comfort in bronze battle against Tunisia. That's some sports stories for you with the Guardian newspaper. Over to you, sir.
The registration of illegal immigrants, I think, is a necessary thing that we must do. Illegal immigrants in Nigeria, illegal migrants in Nigeria are actually a whole lot. The borders are porous. I was reading somewhere there are over 2,000 entries into Nigeria, border entries. How many of these are manned? Maybe less than 10% of those things are manned. So we have a lot of people here. If we're talking about planning, how do you begin to plan when you don't even know how many people you're planning for? That is one. Two, we're talking about insecurity, the identity of an individual. When you don't even know who is a Nigerian, how do you begin to secure that environment? Each and every person living in an environment that must have an identity. We must know that this is your name, you are here, you live here. If we cannot do that, we don't have a nation. So this is a step in the right direction. Now, whether that will now be used to legalize the stay of those people or not is another ballgame entirely. But as far as documenting illegal migrants is concerned, we must document illegal migrants in this country.
You might want to go read full details of that so you can actually get the perspective from all the various conspiracy theories or allegations, so to say, that is on the front page of the paper. Let's see. We have this Senate most mandatory computer education for teachers, pupils. We also have hitches.
It's good, but I think our approach to education has been spur of the moment, knee-jerk reaction kind of thing. It doesn't work. When you plan education, you plan it holistically. So it's not just, you just wake up and say, okay, let's start training the teachers on computer. For example, the teachers you want to train on computer, we've had situations in which teachers could not pass primary 4 exams in this country. So if you do not address the fact that the teacher you want to train on in computer could not even sit down and pass primary 4 exam, what are you planning? So you're just reacting to an event. Oh, they're using computer all over the world, so let's start training them. No.
Oh, are you one of those that are also subscribing, aside from the Security Summit, we should have something on education as well, so we can have a plan? Because
we need to have a plan. See, ASU, NASU, funding of university, curriculum, we are not addressing them holistically. They cannot be addressed in bits and pieces. They are not silos affair. It's an integrated plan that we need. We need to know exactly what we're doing, from primary to secondary to tertiary. Issues of infrastructure, issues of curriculum, issues of teachers had to be addressed all encompassing, not in silos. What we're doing right now, it doesn't work. We will see ASU in another few months down the line. You will see they will come out again.
Quite unfortunate. All right, let's see what's on the Nation newspaper now. It's our last paper for review this morning. We have a not too pleasant scene. Rescuers at the scene of the collapsed family apartment in Jos. That's it there. Crowds of people. There's this thing again about, people when there's an emergency situation. It's good intentions. People want to help. But then the people, the emergency workers, the rescuers have trouble getting to the scene. And that's some of the issues that the emergency team talked about. I want you to speak briefly on that before we move on to other headlines.
It's a very important part of emergency, handling emergencies. But unfortunately, even the environment does not lend itself to a smooth...
proper rescue.
Yes. I'll give you an incident. I was directly involved with a fire incident. My office then was off Awolowo Road, and we called the fire people. Do you believe that the fire people could not get to the office? I'm talking of a distance of maybe like 300 meters. They couldn't get to that place until it was even the local people that ended up putting out the fire. Because Awolowo Road that day ended up being totally jammed. There was nose to nose, nowhere for anybody to move. And then when you now get to the scene, you see people who think that those are some movies going on, and they
want to be the first to put it on social media.
On social media and all the rest. It's all part of the social campaign, the citizens' education that we need to put out there. And the emergency organizations themselves may not be able to do it alone.
All right, let's see other headlines that I just needed to get almost like an instant reaction to that. We have this one on Buhari to critics of insecurity. You are not being patriotic. Man advises government on AFCFTA. That's also on the front page. The issue of wages is also here. Wages adjustment talks deadlocked. But there's a story about WABA saying things are going well, and then you have another group saying they have not agreed on anything. Anyway. There's not one Labour, really. Too many factions, and it's confusing.
Within Labour.
We have Oshibanjo, we're moving GDP to 25%. That's also on the front page. We have Buhari's lawyer shows video to quash Atiku's server claim. Chair explains why INEC dumped electronic transmission plan. These are some of the headlines on the front page. We have this one on probing of 48 billion naira of Makinde. APC probe Makinde's 48 billion naira assets declaration.
Who is probing? They are asking for it to be probed. There's no point in making that request. Number one, a gentleman has done what 1,001 politicians has not been able to do in this country. So what exactly are they vilifying him for? That is one. Number two, is an asset declaration, and there's an agency of government that is in charge. So if there are issues of verification, it is that agency, it is the responsibility to go ahead and do their verification. They should leave the gentleman alone. The structure for verifying assets are already there. Let the agency of government go and do their job. He has done what Napoleon cannot do. How many of the politicians have declared their assets? How many of them?
Well, what's your take on this wage adjustment talks? On one part, one is saying there is possibly going to be an ultimatum, a strike, and then another faction of the NLC. I mean, this division, is it helping the labor movement?
It's definitely not helping. The discussion about the adjustment is also taking too long to happen, because I believe that at the point where negotiation has reached some advanced stage, they should even have started discussing the adjustment and develop a template. If the template has been developed, it will be easy. You plug in whatever is the final figure you have adjusted, and everything will roll out. But apparently, there has not been anything like that. So there is struggle. And the struggle will be further complicated by the fact that there might not even be adequate funding to accommodate some of these things. So left to some of the states, they will even rather elongate the discussion.
I want to pick your brain, your thoughts on this free trade agreement that we just recently signed.
Yeah.
There is an advice. There seems to be a divided opinion.
There are fears, and the fears are genuine. Now, Nigeria is the biggest market in Africa, 200 million people. And the question you want to ask is, if we open Africa as a single market, what exactly does Nigeria produce that it wants to offer the rest of Africa? That is the question I'm asking myself. Because most of the things we produce, we don't even produce in enough quantities to meet the local demand. So unless we are saying that, okay, now that the market is now bigger, we have an incentive to want to produce more so that we can... Where is the industrial base? There's no power. The industrial base is extremely weak.
So you're thinking we probably shouldn't have signed it?
I'm saying, well, maybe we have signed it, but we have to approach this with caution and ensure that it will deliver whatever were the clear objective that we set out to achieve when we signed this agreement. In a world where Brexit has been there, you saw the problem with Brexit, where Trump has gone back to renegotiate practically all the regional trade agreements. So it shows that the issues of trade agreements are not things you just close your eyes and append. It doesn't work.
They did say they engaged in wide consultation.
Yeah.
Okay, Falana warns against continued detention of El Zaki. There's been a spike in protest by his group members in recent. There's been in Lagos, there's been in Abuja, and they seem to be building momentum.
And there could be more.
Yeah.
As long as the man remains in prison. I think it's part of the security issues that are brewing. This one is still brewing. We already have a cacophony of all sorts of issues on ground already. But the government needs to address this before it explodes. Some people said they have up to 8 million followers across the north. That's a huge number. So we don't want a repeat of the Yusuf experience, which probably was part of what led to Boko Haram today, repeating itself in the case of El Zaki. And it's better we address it before it gets to that level.
All right, we'll just take a look at what's on the back and then we'll wrap things up. Louis Odion is talking about Shoba's Cold Wars and Last Laugh. I'm sure you want to read that one for those that like to know more about the man, the elder statesman. El Rufai, armed to the teeth. That's Olatunji speaking. Reality bites. There's a quote there you might also want to see. I guess that's where we're going to wrap things up, but not before I say a very big thank you for your time this morning. Thank you for coming on the program.
Good to be here. Thank you.
And of course, thank you for joining us on Off the Press. It returns tomorrow morning at 8:30 a.m. I am Felicity Ezewiike, wishing you a lovely day.